Hello, sir. All right, how's everybody doing? Three of you? All right, well, let's go over the schedule. Starting next week, final presentations Tuesday, Thursday, both. So I'll let you decide who wants to go next week. Since you three are here by yourself, I'll let you decide if you want to go next week or the week after. It's up to you. Week after? Week after?
I can go
Next week? All right. Well, do me a favor right now. Go ahead and email me in Eagle whether you want to do next week or week after. It's actually going to be week 14 and 15, actually. Technically, we're in week 13 right now. So just put week 14 or 15. 14 would be next week. 15 would be the week after last week. Do that real quick. And tonight we're going to be going over computer forensics. Thursday we'll be doing a lab on drive forensics called Forensics Drive Look. And as far as the presentation goes, and presentation and paper, show up 10 minutes early the day you're giving your presentation. And so if you're giving them next week, you can decide whether you're going Tuesday or Thursday next week. And when you email me, just let me know which day you want to, what you would like to go, Tuesday or Thursday, either one will work. Get here 10 minutes early, 50 points for attendance, even if you're not presenting. So it's required to be here. And then there'll be a survey you'll fill out for each individual presenter starting next Tuesday. And you'll upload your paper to whatever week you're going to be presenting. So I'm looking at the week 14 next week. Both due dates for week 14 and 15 is going to be May 9th. But if you're presenting on week 14, which is next week, you'll just click on that research paper, copy and upload your paper the night of your presentation. Okay? It's the same assignment, just copied twice.
So our papers are due the night before.
Night you present, correct. And what you'll do is when you come in 10 minutes early, if you could put your presentation on a thumb drive or email it to me or both, that would be great. That way when you come in, I'm going to copy it to my computer first thing when you come in. That way we'll test it out, make sure it works and everything a few minutes early before class starts. And then during your presentation, you will just have 10 minutes to present your material. I'll give you a 2-minute heads up when you're about 2 minutes time's up. And then at the end, you'll ask if there's any questions, and then folks will fill out the survey. In fact, I'll show you what the survey looks like. If you go to week, let's see if I got that in week 14 or 15. Yeah, I've got it in both weeks. Okay, so let's see. Week 14 task, if you click on the survey link, should redirect to, name a student, title presentation. What did you like about presentation? Any questions you have for the presenter? So just 4 questions. That's it, pretty simple. Questions on your presentation paper? All right, tonight we're going to discuss introduction to forensics. It's not going to be real long, but we're going to talk about what forensics is all about and the popularity of forensics as it refers to computer science. So, computer forensics basically is a computer crime in any criminal offense, activity, or issue that involves computers. And so that's from forensics.nl. Computer misuse tends to fall in 2 categories. You've got computer used to commit a crime, or the computer itself is a target of a crime. Computer is a victim. Computer security incident would then be filled out. and a computer incident response. Since it's so prevalent now, generally most medium to large size police departments have a cyber criminal defense or cyber criminal area department that they will host and have folks that work there that specialize in computer crimes. You can get degrees as well, which I'll talk about in a second. Some places you can get degrees in computer forensics and computer criminal analysis. So how computers used to commit a crime, you know some of these already probably, but some illegal activities would be like child pornography, threatening letters, email spam, harassment, extortion, fraud, theft of intellectual property, embezzlement. All these crimes leave some type of digital track. And so since it leaves a track of some type, a trace of some type, we can then bring it to a court of law to document it, to prove that this computer was used. And then it's up to the prosecution to prove that a certain person committed it on that computer. Fairly easy to prove a computer did something on that. Somebody did something on a computer. The hard part sometimes is joining a person with that crime. Not real difficult sometimes, but it can be at times, and that's what the prosecution does. Investigation of these types of crimes include searching computers that are suspected of being involved in illegal activities, analysis, like we'll do Thursday, gigabits of data for specific keywords. Then we'll also look for log files to see what's happened during those times. And we'll talk about different types of logs, not just physical logs, but they can even keep track of and capture volatile data, like in your computer, when it's running, you've got your monitor, keyboard, mouse. While it's running, everybody's familiar with data being stored on a hard drive, but they'll also capture data on your memory stick. Also store memory on virtual memory. So you've got hard drive capture, physical memory capture, virtual memory capture, which is a combination of hard drive memory, virtual is. So while the computer's live, if you were to shut it down, you would lose these two totally. And so they have to capture these during the criminal chain of evidence, just like they would in any crime scene. So they take a photo, and then they also isolate with certain software and hardware. As the computer's running, they'll grab the memory, VM. They will also mirror all of these items on a system to where they can actually bring up a computer as it was during the event in question when the police arrived. So they can actually, with the right tools, they can bring it up just like it was, with everything in virtual memory, regular memory, and hard drive, just like it was on the day of or night of the capture. As you can imagine, the software and hardware for that's pretty intricate, pretty detailed. You have to be trained how to use it. Most of the software is Linux-based software that's used to do all the capturing. We'll actually use a software on Thursday that is used a lot for indexing drives to figure out if there's certain keywords that can be found. Also, unauthorized or unlawful intrusion into computing systems. Kevin Mitnick, I think a few of you are doing one or two people in here are doing a report on Kevin Mitnick, a famous hacker that got into a lot of systems when he was young, a lot of times just for investigating, kind of figuring out if he could do it or not. Didn't really do it for money or monetary purposes, but got into AT&T, NASA, and a few other, small companies. Scanning a system also is important when it comes to creating what's called a computer security incident. The systematic probing of ports to see what's open. Denial of service attack could be where any is designed to disrupt ability for user access. That is a crime, by the way. If you're caught pushing a denial of service to a server, that can be you can be charged with a crime for that. And malicious code, any program or procedure that makes unauthorized modifications or triggers unauthorized actions like a virus, a worm, Trojan horse, keyboard logger, screen capture type stuff, something that the user is unaware of and is not opted in for you to do, if that makes sense, for a program to do. Collecting any data that they're unaware of. Programs used to be program developers used to get away with for years because they had a real small print in the software before they installed it. They had all the little fine print on here's what we're collecting, here's what we're collecting, here's what we're collecting. Well, that was thrown out a few years back by judges because they said, number one, the jargon you use is fairly vague. Number two, most people don't read it anyway, right? And so they threw that logic out a long time ago. So software developers can't get away with doing that anymore without getting in trouble. So most people have to, all software developers now have to have some type of opt-in, even with apps now that are going to, find your location. They need your location for the app to work. You have to give okay to that. What else? We're going to collect data periodically of your activity. Is that okay? Yes or no? And a lot of times if it's no, you're not allowed to use the software, or you are allowed to use the software, but maybe in limited mode or something. So, but at least it's in there. And you guys have all seen it in apps you've downloaded to your phone even. There's opt-ins now. And the number one opt-in usually is location. That's a big one that most apps want to see your location. They also want to know if they're able to send you notifications. That's another one too. Can we send you notifications? Yes or no. If you say no, the app can't send you notifications. So anything like that's malicious in nature, or even non-malicious in nature, but the user is not aware of it, can be a crime. So forensics categories, here's some categories of computer forensics. You have computer forensics analysis, electronic discovery, electronic evidence discovery, digital discovery, data recovery, data discovery, computer analysis, and computer examination. Computer forensics involves preservation, identification, extraction, documentation, and interpretation of the computer data. So kind of this crude drawing up here is computer forensics. You're capturing everything and anything during that crime or after that crime has occurred. Computer forensics is the application of science of engineering to the legal problem of digital evidence. So a lot of times students that go into this field of computer forensics need both a computer science background and a law, like a pre-law at least, understanding. So a lot of times you'll see, if you do a Google search for IT professionals or IT, just do a Google search of IT professionals, security IT, you'll see a lot of law firms in Chicago hiring IT students as interns. And then what they'll do a lot of times is pay for their the pre-law as it relates to computer science and computer law. They'll pay for that, but then you have to stay in that firm. But you can basically be an investigator, a researcher for cases that come up. And so some of you might be interested in that. It is kind of a interesting field, I think. A lot of very busy field today, as you can imagine. It's growing. Computer forensics is a rather new discipline in computer security, focused on finding digital evidence after a computer security incident has occurred. So the process of it is methodically examining computer media like hard disk, tapes, whatever it might be that's used to in that crime. It'd be a tablet, a phone. Computer evidence is often transparently created by the OS without the knowledge of the computer user, like logs. People that are doing things on computers don't really understand. You'll see a little bit Thursday how logs are created and why they're created, and that everything they have ever put on that computer, even though they think they've trashed it, you'll find out Thursday is actually recoverable, really, for the most part. You can at least see a trace of it at least you can see a trace of it, if not 100% recoverable. You can find out a trace of it for sure. An example would be if somebody deleted a whole bunch of files that had confidential files from work that they stole and they put it on their laptop and took it home. If they were suspected of doing that and deleted it from their computer and from the recycle bin, thinking, oh, well, it's gone now, right? Nope. With the tool used Thursday, it'll show you every single file that's ever been deleted, ever been written or deleted to that hard drive since the beginning of that hard drive's existence. Some trace will be in there. Now, over time, we'll talk about Thursday how if your computer grows, hard drive space shrinks. It'll sometimes overwrite some data, but there'll always be some index in there of that file. Most users are not aware of that. Even most criminals that use a computer for their crime may be not aware of that as well. But part of the computer forensic study is you'll understand all of that and what that means and how to recover that. We'll talk about some tools Thursday. One of them we'll talk about is a tool called Recuva, RECUVA. We won't use it in class Thursday because Thursday's class we're just going to index. Like I'll have you create like a 10 meg index on your computer, a partition, and then write some files to it, delete it, and you'll see how you can find all those files after you've deleted them. The only way you won't be able to find them is if you did what's called a zero formatting, where you can pass a hard drive like 30 passes with the number 0 over every bit in every sector. But even then, sometimes you can still find some residuals of files. That's why you might work at a place maybe you do currently or have the one they get rid of the computers, actually drill holes in them and disintegrate the hard drives, because there's always a chance of data being recovered. Also, the information may be hidden from the view. To find it, special forensic tools can be used, or tools within the OS can be used to find log files and stuff. Computer forensics is the evidence of computers that's sufficiently reliable to stand up in court and be convincing. And they have to stand up in court by using certain software that's been approved by courts in the proper order and only proper chain of command, meaning only certain individuals should have created this image or these images, not multiple people. And it goes from that crime scene to that collection to a locked up cage somewhere in the police department or FBI or wherever it's hosted at. So it's the same concept of this. If it was a gun, it's as a crime, computers now being heavily used as crime tools, if that makes sense. And so same process though is being needed. In fact, some of the law classes you can't take until you pass some security clearances when it comes to computer forensics, like background check, and then that yes, you understand that you've passed some background checks and you've also passed some psychological tests, then you can get a certain security clearance to take this certain course, if that makes sense. So you're actually your foot's already kind of in the door as a police officer, or you're going down that road. So you're kind of almost going down the road, same road as becoming a police officer, but your specialty is going to be in computer forensics, basically. You'll have the same officer training probably in some cases, or in a lot of cases, you'll just have a specialty in computer forensics. That'll be your specialty. Just like when you go in the military, everybody goes through the same boot camp, but you go into your little specialty areas, same deal. You'll go through the same boot camp as a police officer, but then you'll splice off at a certain point to the computer forensics side of things. Methodology, treat every case as if it would end up in court, because if they don't treat every case like they end up in court, then it won't end up in court. So, because it has to be follow certain criteria and methodologies. So the methodologies are require the evidence without altering or damaging the origin of everything I drew up here. So hard drive memory, virtual memory, everything as it is. Authenticate that your recovered evidence is the same as the original. Seize data, and then analyze the data without modifying it. And again, there are certain approved tools by the court, if you follow some procedures, that will verify and validate that, yes, that this is true. So essentially 3 phases for recovering evidence from a computer system or storage medium: acquiring, analyzing, and reporting. Acquiring, analyzing, and reporting are the 3 stages. The goal of computer forensics is to do a structured investigation and find out exactly what's on a digital system and who was responsible for it. So let's talk about like a public library for a second. How can they find out who's been on a system? If they find the traces, that's going to be fairly easy, I think. But how are they going to find out who did it, you think, if it's a public system? Do you know maybe some ways to do that? They might do that today in a public library? That's just one instance I thought off the top of my head to ask you about. How would they find out who was at a certain computer in the library?
Usually like a login of some sort.
Yeah, some type of login. Now, I think even on public libraries might be required. That's a good one. What's another way they might be able to find a person or person's activity on a computer, a certain computer?
Just have cameras around where the computers.
Most libraries definitely going to have cameras, right? For sure. As a person's leaving, exiting, or even maybe on the computer itself. Anything else you can think of? Both are good, by the way. Logging in, cameras, anything else you can think of? Proving a person's activity or joining it with that activity on the computer. You guys think of anything else? That's about it, probably, right? So log in.
If they log into anything while they're on their computer, you can maybe trace it down who they are. Like if they log into Facebook while they're on that computer.
That's true. So say they don't have cameras, say they don't have a login, but they logged into Facebook during that time, they might be able to trace the IP address back to the library as a source of where they were from. Good one. So social media would be a good one as well. Anything else you can think of? Those are good 3. Okay. So like I said earlier, the finding out what happened, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier sometimes than finding out who is responsible. Now, if it's in somebody's home, this is also what is happening today. Criminals will remote into folks' computers at home at night, like between midnight and 6 a.m. Do set up like a bogus Craigslist account and a bogus transaction, like say they're selling a car or something, right? And meet at this location if you want to buy it. Person shows up, they get their money stolen, there is no car. They trace back the account creation, the police do, the detectives, to a home that didn't do it. Their computers use though to do it. Say it was a grandma and grandpa or something at home, or any family or anybody, could be a college student. Then you have to prove you didn't do it. That's the hard part. Now the way that I've talked to some investigators in Rockford, this has happened many times in the Rockford area, and probably everywhere else too in the U.S. and around the world where Craigslist is used. And the way they get into these computers, by the way, is through remote controlling a computer, which is fairly easy to do if they're on certain websites or they're on certain remote type of use remote software on their computer at all. Maybe get hacked into it, or the hackers get in and hack an account to get in. So a number of ways they can hack into the remote to computer. But the home user will have to prove they didn't do it. And a lot of times investigators will, take into account who the home user is, what activities they've had before, and other activities on that computer. They'll talk to their neighbors, they'll talk to their family, they'll talk to their friends to figure out, okay, does this person even have the skills to create an account? And would they, let's say they find out during their investigation, say it's an elderly person, they don't even have a car, right? Let's say that happened. Well, that's going to easily, and they're very immobile or something. I don't know. They're in a wheelchair or whatever. So there's things they're going to find out. They're like, something's fishy here. When I asked the detective once, I said, well, how many cases of this go unsolved? Like, give me a ballpark. You could give me, he wouldn't give me exact situations, but he said about 80% of cases where this happens, they never find out who did it. Never find out who actually did it. Because again, the person who ever logged into that computer, however they got into it, is really not even a point. It's a mute point, because once they're in, it's that homeowner's responsibility at that point. Once they're in that computer, it's that homeowner's responsibility. That's the way the law looks at it anyway. And so it's kind of like if, I don't know, a stranger was in your house and had a gun and you didn't know they were in the house, and a neighbor showed up or a family member showed up or whatever, and they shot that person and then left. And you're there sitting there like, okay, I didn't do it. I wasn't, that's kind of like what it is almost, right? Because somebody's at your computer remotely. You don't know this person. Set up the meeting with a picture of a new car, used car, whatever. And they just use this person's computer to set up the account and to do everything. Email and everything's all fake. Couldn't trace it back. So at 8 p.m. or whenever they were supposed to meet with the person, the car was there, looked like the car, but the criminal had done and took their money, and that was it. It was over. And it could happen to anybody, and so, like I say, cash only. A lot of these times, the detective did say a lot of times the red flag he always tells people to stay away from, which is probably a good one, is stay away from ads on Craigslist that say cash only, bring cash only to the sale. It might be a red flag to it. It's not always a red flag, but he said it's kind of a red flag. And for the car, also a vehicle like that, to you choose a place of where you want to meet them to purchase the vehicle, not the other way around. He said normally criminals will want to choose a place. That way they have control of the whole situation if something goes south, meaning they have other people around there, usually stationed. Whereas if you call the place, sometimes that they just won't do that. If they refuse to do that, no sale. And so that was one good tip he gave me, because I asked him, so what is one way, because I bought stuff on Craigslist like you guys have, and he said, well, usually criminals will want to control the location. But getting back to the computer story of somebody remoting in, he said, shut your computer down at night. Tell people the number one tip is if you're not using your computer at night, shut it down. Because that's normally when the crime happens, is between midnight and 3 a.m. in the morning is when this type of activity occurs. And when the people wake up in the morning and they get on their computer, they don't even know what's happened on that computer, because the criminals usually have wiped any instance of it, history's gone, whatever. And so it does happen probably more so than, I know it happens more so than I thought it did. And this was 2 years ago when I talked to a local detective. He goes, oh yeah, we get calls all the time. And we also get calls with people calling elderly folks saying they're a distant relative or a nephew needing $5,000 to get out of jail in Mexico. And he goes, you'd be surprised how many people just do it. They don't even question it. And we were talking about it. I was like, well, why do they do that? He said, well, a lot of these folks haven't seen their own family in a number of years. They're kind of lonely, and they kind of feel, you know, they're naive. They're just naive about it, and they want to believe this person, even though they kind of don't even know who this person is. A lot of times, make up names, or he said they'll also find out from the internet a real name of somebody that is a relative. It's not too hard to find. You can find out people's names of their nephews, nieces, grandchildren, right? Doesn't take real hard to do that. And they're frantic when they get the phone call, the person on the other end is, and they have to have it now or they're going to like die. That's kind of the feeling that the officer told me. And he said, you'd be surprised how many fall for it. So, it's that kind of a social engineering thing we talk about here. But when you're capturing things, again, it's easier to find exactly what happened. Kind of hard and kind of a gray area sometimes on who's responsible for it, especially as what I just mentioned earlier. So goals of incident response is accumulation of accurate information, establishment of control of proper retrieval and handling, protection of privacy rights. So even during the whole time, say you find somebody had child pornography on their computer, even during that whole time, you have to really, while you're doing everything, while the police officers are doing everything to capture things, you have to say everything right and do everything right. You do one thing wrong, so you don't read the Miranda rights or you don't do something right on the computer, it can be all thrown out and just boom, just gone out of the, no case whatsoever. So protection of privacy rights established by law and policy, minimization of disruption to business and network operations, preparation of accurate reports and useful recommendations, minimization of exposure and compromise of proprietary data, protection of organization, reputation, assets, education of senior management, promotion of rapid detection and prevention of such incidents in the future, like lessons learned, policies change, things like we've talked about just a second ago with tips on buying things on Craigslist and stuff like that. So education is a big one for sure. And I'll give you an example before we go into the courses. Last semester in this class, there was a student that had a daughter and her friends that was about 13 years old that had went on a social media site, and this person said they were 15 years old and wanted to meet them, but it was kind of suicidal, and so the girls fell for it. Anyway, long story short, the parents found out about this communication, didn't know who this person was on the other end, but did give the communication to the detective. They met the person. It was a 64-year-old gentleman, or I call him a whack job, from Florida that literally drove all the way to Illinois, was at the location he said he was going to be at, in the vehicle he said he was going to be at, but no crime happened, so they couldn't arrest the guy. They couldn't arrest him. And to this day, he's still not arrested because it was just communication. And so she said it's it's kind of an open case, but she said nothing will probably ever happen. But she said if they wouldn't have stopped it, if they wouldn't have found out, because one of the daughters just so happened to tell somebody in the family, little brother, younger brother, something like that. Anyway, the mom found out about it. And the mom was in IT. The mom was an IT person for 20 years. And she felt terrible because she's like, great. I'm like, I should have known about it. And so she presented, her presentations actually in the weeks 14 and 15, one of them. She gives some tips on things to look for kids. There was one app she mentioned that It's a calculator app, and in the calculator app actually had a built-in messaging system in it. It's like an app that kids use, that they use as a back end of it is for sending messages. And the reason it was created is so kids could instant message at a young age without parents knowing about it. That's the way it was created. But then, weirdos take advantage of that and, get suck those kids into that communication. And then bad stuff can happen. So all these apps sometimes start out as innocent things and then build themselves into something, not so innocent. And so, and a lot of these stories, this happened locally, and she said that it happens all the time. We never hear about it. The public never hears about it. Again, a lot of it has to do with privacy. The only ones we really hear about is the ones that are like broken to the news somehow. Somebody leaks it usually, but if it's not leaked, we generally don't find out about it. Like I say, a child pornographer or a sex offender living next to a school or something. I don't know. We hear about those, but that's about it. We don't hear about anything else. Other courses, Introduction to Computer Criminal Justice is some courses, and we'll talk about some colleges here in a second. Introduction to Computers, you guys know about that already. Introduction to Computer Ethics, that's a new one you might not have heard about. This is Professional Code of Ethics, Privacy and Issues, Intellectual Property. Introduction to Computer and Internet Crimes, Malicious Code and Security Incidents. Encryption and Computer Forensics, like Introduction to History of Cryptology, Private and Public Key Cryptology, PGP tool. Steganography, guys, we did a week of that. Computer examination process, searching. This is the one where you almost have to be a law enforcement agent to take that course, because you have to have certain clearances, security clearances to get into. So search and seizure computers for obtaining computer-based evidence, presentation of evidence in court, MD5 algorithm on like fingerprints and hashes, applications to computer forensics. Linux introduction is a good one on evidence collecting tool, like one's called F-Times, systems baselining, and cyber terrorism. I have in here on the, I think it's on the lab for 13, some courses I'll bring up here. Some places you can go anyway. Task one. Put an announcement. So there's a list of schools. I have in there somewhere. I'll find them. All right, we'll go search for the internet. Goes dirt slow. Okay, no. I don't think that's it. That's a drive look. That's the lab. No. I'll look at announcements. It might be one I've not opened up yet. There's a number of though now. It didn't used to be this many, but they keep adding new locations. RBC is like they're slow. Okay, let's see if there's an announcement. If it's not here, I'll get them by Thursday for you. a list of colleges. I thought I put it in there, but I guess I didn't, or I took it out. If it's not in here, well, I'll give it for you on Thursday because I know I have a document picture for it. Nope, I'll put it here Thursday for you. Anyway, it's a list of colleges here. I know DeVry now has in Illinois, Purdue, University of Chicago. A number of colleges here in Chicago do have a pretty good criminal justice and cybercrime area. So, well, I'll put a list together for you on Thursday. Questions about cybercrime and forensics? Anybody interested or have been interested in that in the past? Yeah, I've always thought it's interesting, personally. It does take some, there's a psychological point to it as well. I mean, some people can't handle just what goes on, probably, all the stuff that goes on. We're just like, wow, okay, didn't know that, or didn't want to know that. So, if you're weak stomach, probably not so much. If you like law or like justice, but you're also a geek, yeah, I'd think about it. Be something to look into. I've had students over the years that have went into it, and so I just updated that list from last semester. But there's 4 or 5 colleges in Illinois now that specialize in degrees with a bachelor degree in computer law and computer science law. So anyway, I'll get with that list on Thursday. And so Thursday, we're going to go over the lab on the forensics lab. We're going to do have you create a partition of like 10 megs or something, or like it's 5 megs. And we'll write some files to it, and then we'll delete the files from the partition, have you use this tool to look up the index of that drive and index every word that's ever written in that drive. It doesn't cover anything. It just shows you a list of words basically that have been written to that drive. And so I'll have you save some files from an internet web page or something to it. And then we'll talk about ways that, because this tool is basically just used to capture keywords, really. That's all it's used for. It's not used to recover anything. But there is a tool we'll talk about called Recover that's free to use, that you can use to recover data that people have deleted on purpose or on accident. Over the years, I've known people in my own family that have deleted pictures, and then they've come to me to help recover them. You can use a tool like this to do that, because the average cost to get files restored from a hard drive is about $400 or $500, and that's not even guaranteeing that they'll do anything, just that they'll try. $400 or $500. So you can use a tool like Recover to do it yourself, and doesn't cost you anything. So we'll look at that Thursday. So that's all I got for you tonight. Thanks for showing up, 3 of you. I didn't send an email saying there's no class, so oh well. I knew one that it wasn't coming. That's the only one I knew it wasn't. So they get some flowers here from Crimson Ridge. I never got flowers before. So anyway, we'll see everybody Thursday. Yep. Enjoy the weather, by the way. Nice out. Ready for it.